I want to take you to Luke chapter 9. Going back to the Gospel of Luke chapter 9. We're gonna jump back into the middle of Luke and into the middle of this chapter of Luke chapter 9. Jesus has just taken a little bit of food. If you're reading through this chapter, he's turned it into enough to feed 5,000 men. This is from Luke 9, verses 10 down to 17. And this is one of the things that Jesus did, one of the miracles that he did that is recorded in all of the Gospels. There's not a whole lot like this that shows up in all four accounts, but this one does. And in the aftermath of feeding all of these people, you can imagine the crowds are amazed at what they've seen. Reports are probably starting to swirl around about who this Jesus really is. And so, as is so often the case with Jesus, the next thing you see, Luke 9, verse 18, he's off praying alone. And Luke likes to pay a careful attention to this, that Jesus often goes out. This is his custom to go out and pray by himself. And there's perhaps no person, when you read through the story of Jesus, who's ever been more dependent on his heavenly Father than Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus then, after that, turns to his disciples and asks them, "Who do the crowds say that I am?" It's Luke chapter 9, verses 18 and following. The guys start saying, well, some think you're John the Baptist, come back from the dead. Others think you're Elijah. But Jesus asked the disciples then, but who do you say? What do you think? You've been with me all this time. What do you think? Peter, the guy who typically speaks up for the rest, says, you are the Christ of God, or you are God's Messiah, God's promised king. And I think that's good Peter right there. Most of the things when he blurts something out, that's not good. But this one, you think, he nailed it, right? And he did. But look at what Jesus says immediately after this. Luke chapter 9, verse 21. And Jesus strictly charged and commanded them to tell this to no one, saying, the Son of Man, which is Jesus' favorite way to talk about himself, must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed. So Jesus says, what's everybody saying about me? What's the word on the street? They say, well, some think you're John, some think you're this, some think you're that. What do you think? You're the promised king. You're the Messiah. And for Peter and the disciples and anyone else during this time, when they're thinking that, they think you're the one who's going to overthrow the Roman authorities. You're going to bring back the glory. And now Jesus tells them, don't say that to anyone. And listen to this. This is what's going to happen to me. I'm going to be called to suffer. I will be rejected. I will be killed. And on the third day, I'll be raised. And then he says to all of them, Luke 9:23, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? And for the first time in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus tells his followers exactly what is going to happen to him. The Son of Man is going to suffer, be rejected, be killed, and be raised on the third day. But it's not just that would be shocking, something that I don't even think they had categories for, or certainly they did not understand what he was saying. But it's not just that Jesus says that he will be killed. He tells them very plainly, if you want to follow me, then pick up your cross and get behind me. Now, what would that mean, to pick up a cross? What would they envision? The cross in this day means only one thing. It is the instrument of execution. It's the way criminals die. It's designed specifically to humiliate people, to expose them, to cause them to go through excruciating torture. It is designed to inflict pain. It is something that no one would joke about. It was a subject more or less off limits in normal conversation. And Jesus says, I'm going to be killed, and if you want any part of me, you pick up a cross and get behind me. Wonder how they would think about that. That's not what they signed up for, is it? When he said, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. Do you think they had any idea that this is what they were signing up for? Do they really understand what he's saying? Well, 8 days go by. Jesus takes his 3 closest followers. So Jesus has 12 that are with him all the time, but of them he's got 3 that are closest to him. And he takes them up this mountain. And Jesus does what he normally does, and he turns to God in prayer. These men kind of do what probably they often do, and they struggle to stay awake. I don't know if you've ever been really tired, maybe talked with somebody else who just woke up. I'm not really a morning person, although I do a lot of morning meetings and stuff, but I can remember one time getting up early, I think whether to work on something or go for a meeting. I remember trying to kiss my wife goodbye and say goodbye to her. And I remember her kind of rolling over and saying, thanks, bro. And I was like, bro? It's like, just go back to bed, right? You know, sometimes when you're so tired, you don't know what's coming out of your mind, out of your mouth. Well, as Jesus is praying, remember the other guys are like falling asleep. And as he's praying, his face, the text says, is changed. It's still in Luke 9. And his clothes begin to shine. And all of a sudden, there's 2 guys that show up with Jesus, and they're talking together. And those 2 men, if you look at Luke 9, 29 and 30, turn out to be none other than Moses and Elijah. Like these guys are not dead. I mean, that's something to think about. But they're talking, and what do you think they would talk about? Well, Luke 9:31 says they talked about his departure. What's that about? Which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. What's that about? Well, meanwhile, the 3 disciples are starting to wake up, and they're seeing Jesus in a different way than they've ever seen him before, because his clothes are shining. It's like his glory is shining forth, and then they see these 2 guys. Where did these guys come from? And then somehow they understand, wait a second, that's Moses, that's Elijah. And these 3 guys are starting to wake up, and they're seeing what's happening. And so Peter, as he typically does, opens his mouth, and he says the first thing that comes to his mind. He says, Lord, how about we build 3 tents here for you guys? One for Moses, one for Elijah, one for you. Now, I don't know if you've ever said something and then thought, I don't think I should have said that. Well, look how Luke describes this in the text. If you read it carefully, Luke says that Peter did not know what he was saying because he was so tired. Well, in response, for the second time in the Gospel of Luke, a voice comes out of heaven in response to this. And the voice says, this is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him. You're not going to build 3 tents, one for each. Listen to him. He's my son. Well, the next day, Jesus goes out. He casts out an unclean spirit from a boy, heals the boy, something that his disciples could not do. But while the people are amazed, Jesus turns again to his disciples and he says in Luke 9:44, let these words sink into your ears. The Son of Man is about to be delivered into the hands of men. He is speaking as plainly as he can, but they are not getting it. Well, a few verses later, something of huge significance in Luke's gospel happens. And we should read this in light of that conversation Jesus just had with Moses and Elijah. Remember, they talked about his departure that he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Luke 9, verse 51. When the days drew near for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. He sent messengers ahead of him who went and entered a village of the Samaritans to make preparations for him. But the people did not receive him because his face was set toward Jerusalem. See, Jesus had talked with Moses and Elijah about the departure he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. And by the end of the chapter, Jesus has set his face toward Jerusalem. He's on the road, and he will not be turned away from it. The rest of Luke takes us with Jesus all the way to that special city, the place where so much has already happened in the story of the Bible, the place where Jesus knew he had to go. For example, if you turn ahead into Luke chapter 13 and you look towards the end of the chapter, you just get a glimpse of this. Jesus is warned at the end of Luke 13 that Herod, one of the political leaders, the ruler of that area, wants to kill him. But Jesus says, I've got to go to Jerusalem anyway. This is Luke 13, verse 33. He says, nevertheless, I must go on my way today and tomorrow and the day following, for it cannot be that a prophet should perish away from Jerusalem. And then he says, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it, how often would I have gathered you, or gathered your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. Behold, your house is forsaken, and I tell you, you will not see me until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Several things are becoming clear. Jesus is headed straight for Jerusalem. By this point, nothing can stop him. Everything in the Gospel of Luke is moving toward that city. Jesus is also headed straight for death. He knows what's coming, and he's going anyway. He has already stated this as clearly as he can to his followers. But also, Jesus' heart is filled with compassion all along the way, healing people, or even thinking about the city that he's going to that's going to kill him, and mourning over the city that he loves and longs for, the people that he's come for, the people who don't want him. He loves them anyway. We'll pick up here next time.